I eat exactly like Dr. Michael Greger, one of the leading nutrition researchers in the world, for 1 week.
What about slowing down the aging process itself through diet?
Why am I doing this challenge? Well, after interviewing him for his latest book, How Not to Age, I was inspired to take on his anti-aging diet. I tried lots of strange foods. Tingles your tongue. You're gonna do it? I experienced some unexpected side effects. I had some issues last night. That piece of shit. And I decided to make some long-term changes to my diet moving forward. Now, I've been vegan for about a decade, and I generally eat very healthfully, but I have never eaten like this. I'm going to be slashing my salt intake and cutting my protein intake in half, and so much more I never expected. Okay, so here are all the foods that Dr. Greger eats on a regular basis. Over here, we've got Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. Now, I incorporate pretty much all of these foods in my diet on a daily basis, so this really isn't different from what I eat normally. Over here are all of the extra anti-aging foods that Dr. Greger has started to incorporate into his diet after diving into research for his newest book, How Not to Age. Honestly, I don't really eat any of these foods. All of these are new to me, and from my opinion, lots of these are a little bit weird and definitely more obscure, so I'm definitely getting myself into some new culinary territory. You can find a full list of all these foods, including scientific references backing each one and why you should be incorporating it into your diet by clicking the link in our description. The part of this experience that I'm most worried about is probably just making sure that I'm enjoying my food and getting enough calories. I expect to feel really healthy during this challenge. That's kind of my main expectation, mostly because I'm starting to incorporate a lot of new foods that are very much health promoting. So I'm looking forward to doing that and seeing how my body responds. I already eat a pretty healthy diet, so I'm not expecting massive changes. Perhaps the main thing I'll experience is a slight drop in my blood pressure, which I'm interested to see because I'm going to be going on a much lower sodium diet than I typically eat. The food that I'm definitely most nervous about trying are all of the mushrooms. I really despise mushrooms. I've never liked them. I really do want to make it work, especially when Dr. Greger said if there was one thing I would add to my daily dozen, it would be mushrooms. If I find some way of incorporating them where it's not going to be something I don't enjoy, then that would be awesome. Yeah, my feelings on the protein intake that I'll be maintaining for this diet, which is a little under half of what I normally eat in terms of my daily protein intake, I do wonder how that would affect me long-term in terms of my ability to build new muscle and also improve my strength. I'm curious about that. Actually, in terms of my ability to perform with any kind of cardiovascular activities, I think I wouldn't have an issue there. But in terms of any kind of muscle building goals or strength based goals, I'm really not sure that the low protein intake is going to be able to cut it. What I'm most hoping to get out of this experience is some exposure to new foods and a new way of eating. I love being challenged and pushed outside my comfort zone, so I really look forward to doing that from a dietary perspective. I've kind of got into a groove when it comes to my nutrition, and I generally eat the same kinds of things from week to week, so I look forward to changing that up and experiencing something new. If Dr. Greger did an Eat Like Leif challenge, man, that's a good question. I'd probably have him try some of my soy curls, some of my teriyaki soy curls, which are pretty good in my opinion. So definitely higher in sodium than he'd want, and probably a little bit too far on the processed food spectrum for him, but that's maybe one of the first things I'd have him try. Oh, I would have him try the Leif smoothie. That is packed with nutrition, so I'd be interested to hear what he thinks of that and also whether he enjoys it or not. I do put protein powder in mine, and I definitely wouldn't get away with putting protein powder in his, but I think he'd still enjoy the taste. He definitely doesn't drink sweetened vanilla soy milk, but maybe throw in a cup of that, see what he thinks. Shaving some minutes off Dr. Greger's 180-year lifespan. All right, time to do blood pressure. I've got a blood pressure cuff on here. And if there's one metric that I expect to change this week, it would be blood pressure. Historically, my blood pressure has been a little on the high side, so I expect that to be the case again. So let's see what we got. Yikes, that's a little high. I would prefer to be lower than that, so looking forward to seeing how a low sodium Dr. Greger diet works for me over the next week. So I just finished taking all my before metrics and now the game is on. We're ready to go for the entire week and I'm going to be eating like Dr. Greger for the next 7 days. So we're starting off super strong with some healthy green tea and all of these spices. These are spices that Dr. Greger has included into his diet after researching how not to age. And then once we're done all that, we're going to jump in and make a fruit smoothie, which is going to be my actual breakfast. So I'm kind of nervous, also excited for this week. This is a new way of eating for me, so let's dive in and kick things off. 100% potato starch. And they very helpfully tell you that it has 0.2 calories per pouch. Dip pouch in water, place in mouth, swallow with water. Oh, this looks nasty. You got a little shovel. Dr. Greger, when I was interviewing him, he's like, oh, you probably know this. It's like a bodybuilder thing. I thought, don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, this is probably like a weightlifter thing. So maybe you've heard about it. Where they have these little sheets of edible film. It's just one ingredient, potato starch. It's like transparent. You see it. 1 part turmeric.
That looks like health.
1 part amla, this dried Indian gooseberry powder.
Up next, amla powder. Smells very earthy.
1 part black cumin.
It looks like charcoal. All right, in my little spice pack.
And 1 part papali.
Papali.
You can take a teaspoon of that, so you get a 1/4 teaspoon of each. So it's like I'm taking supplements, but not. They're just whole food spices. This is just like a squishy little like mass, and it just goes down really easy.
This thing looks huge. Oh, we're gonna try to double the wrapper. All right, attempt number 2. Then you just gotta have to commit, and you don't want to get your fingers wet. Let's do it. Wasn't so bad. All right, now we got some green tea.
So I talked about 3 cups of coffee, 13% decrease in all-cause mortality. Okay, 23% lower among green tea drinkers. So drink green tea. Now, if you say you don't like green tea, then we got to work on something else. But
I do like green tea.
So.
Boom! Tastes a little bland. I'd normally put a little sweetener in, but Dr. Greger doesn't do that. Time for some actual food, which is gonna be my smoothie. All right, that's breakfast. I've got a half-gallon smoothie here, which is actually what I normally have for breakfast. So that'll be nicely integrated into my schedule. And I have a lot of the same ingredients that I put in my daily smoothies. The main difference is that this doesn't have any protein powder, which is normally something that I add. So let's go ahead and do a taste test. It's definitely missing a little bit of flavor, which I normally get from protein powder, but yeah, it's pretty good. It'll work for breakfast today. I also added wheat germ and flaxseed in a 50/50 ratio, and that's another thing that Dr. Greger incorporates in his diet daily.
The single dietary component most associated with longevity was spermidine. How much spermidine you're eating? You're like, what are you talking about? The most concentrated dietary source, wheat germ. So I'm adding wheat germ. So what I do, since I want to have flaxseed throughout the day and I want to have wheat germ throughout the day, so I'm actually mixing 50/50 wheat germ, ground flax, and so then I just sprinkle that on whatever meal I happen to be eating. So I'm getting the flax, I'm in the wheat germ.
I also use almond milk, which is far inferior to soy milk, because soy milk has too much protein and we don't want any gains this week. All right, how nice does that look? Tastes really fresh. It's got a really nice crunch. I can tell that it's lower in sodium than I would typically have for pasta, but I know that's healthy. Dr. Gregor, I hope you're proud. I might put a little bit more of the salt-free seasoning on here, but other than that, I think this is a really awesome dish. I'm gonna be adding some capers. This is gonna be the first time I really remember trying this. These are low salt capers. If you wanna make them even lower in sodium, then you can rinse them.
So I'm eating capers. I never ate capers before. It's hard to find low salt capers, but you know, it's something I wanted to add because good source of quercetin. So a combination of decreasing DNA damage and then to help clear the body from senescent cells, these 3 senolytic compounds. And so there's just various foods that are most concentrated sources.
Kind of smells like salt and vinegar chips, which are chips that I used to love as a kid. Probably won't taste nearly as good. Let's try it. Yeah, that's not really my thing. Let's see if it's better with pasta. Probably better not on its own. Yeah, it's a little better like that. 1 caper per bite. That's what we'll do. I'll kind of even hide it in there, like you'd do for your pet. Take your vitamins. All right, I'm gonna put this off to the side and finish that up for lunch, and I'm gonna try Dr. Gregor's favorite apple, which is Sweet Tango.
Big fan of Sweet Tango apples.
Oh yeah. I've been on a Cosmic Crisp apple.
Oh, yeah, not
run
bad.
Lately.
Not bad.
Very good, Dr. Gregor. I'm a fan. I do like having a little bit more of a crunch, so that's why I currently prefer Cosmic Crisp, but this is fantastic. Got a really nice flavor. All right, I'm gonna go enjoy this and I'll see you at dinner. All right, for dinner, I have purple sweet potatoes loaded with a taco stuffing. We've got some beans, rice, and red onions. We also have some of this porcini mushroom powder. Dr. Gregor said I need to try it because it might change my mind about mushrooms. Tastes like clay. All right, don't be dramatic. Now let's try the taco filling, which has a bunch of that in it. Let's see if I masked it well enough. Yeah, I can't really tell. Let's try some of the purple sweet potato. It definitely tasted a little dirt. That probably wasn't fully washed off. Got some extra B12 in here. Dirt and mushroom powder. Quality meal. Usually I would put a lot of sauce on this, but I don't really have any sauce that's low in sodium. So I put some balsamic vinegar on it, but I need some more. I'm going to eat this meal and then probably wash it down with a nice crispy apple. So I think those apples are going to become tastier and tastier throughout the week. So gonna wash everything down with that and then get to sleep, get my full 8 hours, and then wake up to start day number 2. So we got 6 days left. Let's make it happen. Start day 2. This is my breakfast, and I gotta be honest, I had some issues last night. I had a lot of fiber yesterday. I was just looking at chronometer. I had 82 grams of fiber in my diet yesterday. Typically, I hang out around 40 to 50 grams. So this is kind of like double when I normally eat. And I actually woke up halfway through the night and I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. And yeah, I didn't actually feel that good this morning, and I'm starting to eat a little bit later today. I don't know, maybe it's just gonna take a little bit of time for my body to adjust, but heck of a lot of fiber. And I also was really hungry. I struggled to get in 2,500 calories, and even that is pretty low for me. But we're working on making this better, and I'm gonna be starting today with a green maca smoothie. I'm also going to have a piece of toast with some sun butter, and I'm gonna have my spice packets as well. So working on trying to get that down more easily. And then we also have some green tea. I'm also gonna be putting wheat germ and ground flax into my smoothie as well. and I'll be using unsweetened vanilla almond milk. All right, here it goes. Day 2 spice packet. It's kind of weird. That's it for my breakfast. I had some walnuts, also had some banana here. Got my green tea, had my smoothie. I'm gonna go enjoy this, get some work done, and I'll see you at lunch. All right, well, it's time for lunch and got some bad news. And I'll be using unsweetened vanilla almond milk. So one of my main goals this week is to keep my sodium intake below the daily recommended intake of sodium. So I've been trying to keep under 1,500 milligrams per day.
So I would stick to the American Heart Association's 1,500 milligrams a day. General public, definitely 1,500 milligrams as a maximum.
That is actually really difficult. And I don't know if other people who do that just don't like the taste of salt or just avoid everything other than fruit and vegetables, but that's actually really challenging. Case in point, that f***ing piece of shit. I added, you won't even believe this. I thought, oh man, I'm doing so well with my breakfast. I'm on track for the rest of the day. I've had no sodium today. I knew that I had a little bit from odds and ends because everything has sodium. But this stuff, I had 4 cups of this. I don't even fucking like almond milk. I was thinking I'm just gonna do water, but then we thought, well, the recipe calls for almond milk, so I put some almond milk in, put 4 cups in, and what do you know, that ended up being 460 milligrams of sodium. That is 31% of my total daily sodium was consumed in my smoothie for breakfast from something I don't even enjoy. Like, I should have eaten some fucking tortilla chips or something instead. Anyways, we are struggling to keep it under the sodium intake for today. So I was going to have this really nice meal, and now I had to go through and cut out a bunch of things and rework it to basically make it 0 sodium. So here's what we got. We're gonna make a tofu eggless salad, which was going to be really good. I've had it before and it's delicious, but we basically had to get rid of half the ingredients because they have sodium in them. And then just like a couple capers, and I need to rinse all the salt off of them as much as possible, but that will still contribute some salt. So just trying to keep this as low as possible to get through the rest of the day so I can actually consume enough calories to not be in a massive deficit and be just miserable. And honestly, I still have some digestive issues right now with all the fibers, so we're hitting a little bit of a rough patch right now with the Dr. Greger week of eating. And I'm also throwing in some fruit because I'm going to need more calories. So I added 2 apples and a banana because they have no sodium, and really everything else has sodium in it. So not to be dramatic, it's not the point, but yeah, let's make some weird ass lunch. Just added my few capers. They're actually growing on me a little bit. Like a semi-salty snack that I no longer eat. All right, speaking of salt, we've got some new salts, which is a sodium-free salt substitute. Let's see. That's weird. It kind of just like tingles your tongue. Doesn't really taste like salt. All right, well, wouldn't mind some more seasoning, so we'll use a little bit more. And I decided to live it up a little bit, so I made some tofu scramble kind of stuff. Instead of lettuce wraps, we're using purple cabbage wraps, which I actually prefer. You don't actually realize how much salt accentuates flavor until you no longer eat it. I think New Sol and I are going to become BFS by the end of this week. Yeah, actually when it's mixed into things, it's a passable substitute for salt. So it'll be enough to get me through it the next 5.5 days. All right, do we have a sodium update? 212 with all this?
Yep.
Yes. Just received word that this whole entire meal clocks in at 212 grams of sodium. We have some sodium for dinner. Heck yeah. We can do this. We can make it through. And you. Now it's time to finish up the day and have my dinner. I've got oatmeal here. I'm gonna add a cup of blueberries. We also have some barberries, which are some of the berries that Dr. Greger includes in his diet after researching how not to age. So I'll be adding a tablespoon of that into my oats. And I also need to finish by eating a piece of mushroom. So I want to make a few notes. We were at 53% of our total daily intake of sodium just after breakfast. I had a fruit smoothie and the almond milk blew things out of the water. I was already over half of the way, and we're finishing the day at 69% of the total sodium. So the entire day is 1,032 milligrams. So just over 1 gram of sodium in the entire day of eating. Another comment that I want to make is I'm coming in at about 2,800 calories, which is generally a pretty typical day of eating for me. 2,800 to 3,000 calories is really where I tend to hang out recently. So with that calorie target, we got in 126 grams of plant protein, and I was actively trying to keep the protein low. That just goes to show you that plants are packed with protein, and if you want to try to keep your protein intake low, you have to really work at it, just like you have to work at it for the sodium intake. For fiber, we're at 80 grams for the day, so I'm expecting some issues later tonight, probably. Just like I had last night, and I don't know, hopefully my body will acclimate because this is starting to feel a little rough. I forgot to mention, I'm going to eat a little piece of kombu, which is what I have on a daily basis to hit my iodine intake. So, delicious. It's actually really not that bad. But let's eat something that is bad. Let's grab oh, that was a big piece. All right, we're committed. That's actually one of the worst things I ever had.
Man, porcini's so good. Have you tried porcinis?
I don't think so.
Okay, you have not had a mushroom. So you've had a porcini mushroom. You
Okay,
can get them
that's
dried.
the first to try?
You can get them dried. You can get them dried.
I don't know that I'm going to swallow this, actually. I need some water. Get some water on set. All right. I got mushroom soup in my mouth. Let's wash that down with some barberries. In terms of berries that I've ever had, absolute worst. Relative to what I just ate, pretty fucking good. I'm trying not to be dramatic. I'm really usually someone who can just eat like super health food and totally fine. No. Don't want that. All right, we're gonna have to try putting some mushroom powder in one of those weird ass packets that I'm gonna swallow. That's the next move. Going to finish the day with a relative treat, which is some blueberry oats. Fingers crossed for this tonight. Hopefully everything goes well, and I'll see all of you in the morning. Morning of day 3, and I'm feeling better when it comes to my digestion, and I'm getting smarter. So I'm gonna be doing the porcini powder in a spice packet as well. I didn't taste any of that. Lunchtime. I'm not really a tempeh person, but this is part of Dr. Greger's diet. Do some quick math. Beep, bop, boop, beep. So my total fiber for today came in at a whopping 101.5 grams. That is more than I've been consuming, so hopefully everything goes well in the next 12 hours. It's actually 3 p.m. right now. I haven't eaten anything so far today because I just got my blood drawn and feeling a little lightheaded. They took a lot of blood. So I did put in 1 cup of my arch nemesis because it has calcium. Let's do the spice packet. I did burp like a little bit later and I just tasted straight mushroom. Oh, just got a little bit of kick. What's that, Viper Longum? We're filming a meal prep video right now, so we've got some delicious looking food here, but this is my food, 1900 calories, definitely a calorie deficit for the day. Got a smoothie, got my walnuts, got some green tea, mega mushroom powder. We're gonna try this tomorrow, not expecting that to go well. All right, dinner, day number 5. I've only had one meal so far today. Fiber for the day is a more reasonable 66.6. Morning of day 6, we're in the home stretch, 2 days left. First time drinking coffee in at least 10 years. We're gonna do it. That's not as bad as I remembered. Wait, oh. There was this one sweet potato, it just started burning. Look at that deep purple. I didn't put anything on this. That's really good. I like that a lot. All right, dinner, we got the pasta, we have capers, we have a little piece of kombu. That's decent. Not my best creation. Nothing a little table tasty can't fix. I love these half-gallon mason jars. It's a great way to have big smoothies. I think smoothies are so underrated in general. It's just such an easy way to pack in lots of nutrients. So I've got a bunch of health ingredients in here like flaxseed, wheat germ. We have some maca powder, hemp seed. I have a bunch of that in here. And if I were to go through and eat all of this, it would take me probably an hour of chewing to get through all that. So really convenient, really nutritious. Love throwing in protein powder, which I really look forward to doing tomorrow. We also have our green tea. We have our walnuts, and we have the spice packet. It is pretty easy to get these down, even though they look enormous. So my normal eating schedule has really kind of become 2 main meals and then some snacks. I'll have a big smoothie in the morning, and then I have a really big meal around 3 or 4 p.m. I found that works well for me, and then I'll have snacks throughout the day, typically apples, carrots and hummus, some pretzels, stuff like that. What did I tell my day 1 self? Yeah, spice packets aren't so bad. Mushrooms, you're not gonna like them. So just put them in a spice packet. All right, for lunch, I'm gonna be having the pasta that I made last night. So I was thinking I would have this for dinner again, but I'm knocking out some work and just kind of in the groove and wanted to grab something quick. So decided to grab this, and then I'll make the lunch that I had yesterday for dinner today. So I've got the whole wheat pasta with the veggie sauce that I made. And I also grabbed one of my apples for the day. So I'm gonna have that as well. See you at dinner. All right, this is the finale. Well, we have made it to the final meal of this week. We have a purple sweet potato with tempeh and black beans. And then I also have my little piece of kombu. All right, just a little bit more table tasty. Okay, a lot more. We were just talking about how I've already gone through half of this. 85 servings per container. And I've gone through like 40 servings in 3 days. But objectively, it's quite healthy. One big accomplishment is finishing 7 days straight under 1,500 milligrams of salt. That's something that I have not done for a very, very long time. I'm excited to see what my blood pressure is tomorrow morning. All right, moment of truth. If there's anything that I expected to change this week, it's my blood pressure. Let's see where we're at. So when I began this journey, my blood pressure was 129/86. I've actually noticed quite a bit of fluctuation in the blood pressure reading, but this morning I got 123/66, and that is some improvement. I've been getting some lower readings than that even. So if I go back to yesterday, I had 117/70. So my lowest reading this whole week in terms of my systolic blood pressure, the number on the top was 113, which I took a few days ago, 113/78. So that was my best. So there has been some variance this week with my blood pressure, but no surprise, since starting to follow a lower sodium diet, we've generally seen these numbers decrease. So yeah, it's always good to have data that you can use to make decisions with your health and fitness journey. So I think there are so many different factors beyond just diet that can affect your blood pressure, can affect your resting heart rate. I was dealing with a work issue this morning, and who knows kind of what effect that has on blood pressure. It's hard to isolate individual variables, but clearly, given all of the data points that we've accumulated over the last week with my blood pressure, it's clear that consuming lower sodium is obviously, as I expected, going to have a benefit with my blood pressure. Outro. I'd like to run through some of my main takeaways and my observations, things that I kind of picked up through this week. So my first one is that in just 1 week, I experimented with everything that Dr. Greger eats and recommends in terms of all these different foods and supplements. That was a really cool thing to do. I probably would not have done that had it not been for this video. So that was a cool, this was just in general a cool experience. I was also really pleasantly surprised how easy it was to incorporate every food that Dr. Greger eats and recommends into my diet this past week. And the spice packet was a real game changer in making that happen. So I appreciate that tip from Dr. Greger. Another main takeaway, I learned a lot about low sodium cooking. And that was a great tool to add to my skill set. And that's definitely something that I'm going to be focusing on more moving forward. I'm going to be working to actively reduce my sodium intake and track my blood pressure on a more regular basis. With that being said, I'm not going to always stay under 1,500 milligrams per day. I actually just learned earlier today that there are 2 recommendations for sodium intake. So Americans eat on average about 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommends that adults limit sodium intake to less than 2,300 milligrams per day. And then the American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams a day, and ideally moving to a limit of no more than 1,500 milligrams per day for most adults. So there are kind of 2 targets, the 1,500 milligram kind of ideal target that the American Heart Association recommends, and then the 2,300 milligram per day target that the guidelines state. And according to a study published a decade ago by researchers at the CDC, 98.8% of US adults consume more than 1,500 milligrams a day of sodium. So with all that being said, I strongly believe that athletes need more sodium than sedentary people, at least when you are sweating profusely. So I've done a lot of serious endurance training, long races, long training sessions where I'm running or biking in 90+ degree weather for hours during the summer. And I have personally experienced the detrimental effects of low electrolyte levels and not getting in enough electrolytes, particularly salt. And in fact, for my full Ironman a few years ago, one thing that I carried with me for the entire race was actually a little tube of salt. I probably, during that race, ingested at least a gram of salt per hour on the bike and run. Probably ended up being over 10 grams of salt throughout the entire race. So that's a heck of a lot of salt, but I really believe if I had not been consuming that, then I would not have finished that race. Dr. Greger said that he was going to look into this and get back to me, and hopefully he puts together some video on sodium intake for athletes, because I think it's a really interesting and important topic. But for regular exercisers, so 30 to 60 minutes a day, 5 to 7 days a week, the dietary guidelines for sodium in the diet are likely adequate to replace any sodium lost during exercise, especially if you are not exercising out in the heat with intensity. However, for athletes who exercise regularly for over 90 minutes a day or several times a day, additional sodium intake is quite possibly necessary. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends sodium intake of 300 to 600 milligrams per hour during prolonged exercise. This recommendation increases to 500 to 700 milligrams of sodium per hour for endurance athletes, and it can go upwards of 2,000 milligrams or more per hour if the athlete is unconditioned or training in heat or humidity. So upwards of 2 grams of sodium per hour for endurance athletes if you are training in the heat or humidity. But in general, most of the time I am not training crazy hours. It's in the winter. I'm not sweating that much during my workouts. So I think my sodium intake should be more in line with kind of the recommended daily intake of sodium. I'm going to experiment with this in my diet, but I think there's quite a difference between 1,500 milligrams and 2,300 milligrams. I think those extra 800 milligrams actually can give you flexibility in your diet. So I'm going to try to stick more with the 2,300 milligram per day recommendations. I think 1,500 is a little too challenging, and I'm not saying it's not beneficial, but it's a little too challenging and restrictive for my lifestyle. And also, if you are consuming 2,000 calories per day, I think it's a lot easier to stay at 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day than if you're consuming 3,000. Because as we've learned this week, everything contains sodium. Almond milk contains sodium. So it really starts adding up. All right, so let's talk about protein. For this past week, I was consuming somewhere on the order of half to maybe like 60% of the amount of protein I typically do. And I was a bit more sore this past week after my workouts than I normally am. I can't say that's due to a low protein intake, and there's a very small sample size that I'm working with here. But I will say that protein is necessary for muscle repair and recovery. That's very clear in the scientific literature. And some studies even suggest that protein intake can have an effect on muscle soreness because it assists in muscle repair and recovery. So I don't know. I think based on my goals and the way I train, I'm not sure that long-term a low protein diet will serve me, but let's go into a little bit more detail on that. So the amount of protein that athletes should consume, and when I use the word athletes, I'm not just talking about elite athletes. I'm talking about one of my favorite quotes in the fitness world: if you have a body, you're an athlete. And that's really how I view it as well. So when I use the word athlete, I'm talking about people who regularly move their bodies. Like for endurance athletes, generally somewhere on the order of 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you are a strength athlete, 1.4 to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight per day is what kind of the general scientific kind of totality of research recommends. My favorite protein recommendation is based on a 2018 scientific paper in which the renowned muscle building researchers, Dr. Alan Aragon and Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, they reviewed the literature, all of the literature published on the topic of protein intake to determine an upper anabolic threshold for per meal protein intake. They determined that to maximize muscle protein synthesis, to maximize muscle growth, you should aim to consume protein at a target intake of 0.4 grams per kilogram of body weight or 0.18 grams per pound of body weight per meal across a minimum of 4 meals. That's kind of been my go-to recommendation, and it ends up being 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So please note that protein targets like these that are based on your body weight assume that you're relatively lean. So as an example, as we've learned, I'm about 176 pounds right now. Based on their research, I should aim to consume about 32 grams of protein per meal across a minimum of 4 meals per day. That ends up being a minimum of 128 grams of protein per day. So I haven't regularly been eating 4 meals per day. I've been eating 2, sometimes 3 meals per day with some snacks, but I am hitting around 120 to 140 grams of plant protein per day, sometimes a little bit higher. That kind of gets me to what I would say is the ultimate question that really matters. And it's, what are your fitness goals? What exactly are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish? So if your goal is solely longevity, then Dr. Greger would recommend that you drop your protein intake. But as Dr. Greger writes in his book, How Not to Age, there is clearly a difference between plant and animal protein when it comes to the impact they have on your health and longevity. For example, there are lots of benefits of plant protein, such as FGF21 and lower methionine content, which is the only amino acid that science has proven strongly correlates with lower lifespan among mammals. So you should read How Not to Age for all the details. I highly recommend this book. It's fantastic. But if you want to lose weight, if you want to build muscle, if you want to improve your strength, then many decades of peer-reviewed scientific literature have demonstrated that you need to consume more protein than the standard guidelines for sedentary people or people who are just lightly active. And ultimately, my goal is to maximize my health and maximize my fitness. I firmly believe that accomplishing both of those, being healthy and fit on a plant-based diet, is possible. And I believe it's possible to accomplish that following a healthy, high protein, plant-based diet filled with nutritious foods. Those are kind of all of my thoughts regarding protein and what I want to do moving forward. So to summarize all of that, I am going to actively work to keep my sodium intake lower. And I've picked up some cool tips from this past week on how to do that. I always work to get as much protein from whole foods as possible. I do think that is a healthy way to go, but consuming more protein has really made a big difference in my fitness journey. So I'm going to continue doing that. So who would I recommend this experience and I guess Dr. Greger's diet to? I'm not sure how many people I would recommend this experience to. If you are just getting started in your plant-based journey and you are on a path toward better health, work on incorporating some of Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen into your diet. So don't make sweeping overnight changes because for most people that's not going to work well. Go through, and if you really don't eat any vegetables, start having 1 serving of veggies per day. And rotate through a few different types of veggies. Find something you really enjoy. Let's say it's broccoli, then great. Consume a serving of broccoli every day, and then just continue stacking on that. Then start incorporating some more fruit. Incorporate an extra serving of veggies and just continue to build on those healthy habits over time. That's what I would recommend you focus on. And then maybe a few years down the road, or whenever you feel like you're super locked in on a mostly healthy diet and you want to experiment with some extra interesting foods and supplements to really take your health to the next level, then you can jump into an experience like this. I'd like to clearly state that I believe it's okay to eat and enjoy foods that are not the healthiest foods you could possibly eat. I love pizza. I love tortilla chips with guacamole, ice cream occasionally. I love pretzels. I love lots of different things that would not be on Dr. Greger's meal plan. For me, that is necessary for the long-term sustainable aspect of my personal nutrition journey. I eat healthfully 90 to 95% of the time. But then that 5 to 10% where I decide to have some pizza on Friday night or whatever it is, yeah, I could be a little bit healthier. I could push it up to 100%. I could follow Dr. Greger's nutrition plan to a T every single day, but I would not feel great doing that. And there's a possibility that at some point I just say, hey, screw this, and then actually totally fall off the rails and just start eating tons of pizza or tortilla chips or whatever it is. So figuring out ways of making your diet as healthy as possible while at the same time ensuring that you actually enjoy what you are eating, I think is really important. So what would I say to Dr. Greger after this whole experience? I would say I really appreciate how much effort you put into all of the research and the education that you share. I'd also say I tried everything you recommended. I liked most of it, especially the spice packet, capers. Those were pretty good. So I was pleasantly surprised by those. But I tried porcini mushrooms. I tried a bunch of different mushrooms. Just didn't work for me. And I hope you'll forgive me for not loving everything that you recommended.